Hi, Dr. Candula with Advent. Today, talking about Advent and how it really is very personal to me. Really, everything that we do and kind of how I've designed this organization comes back down to this thing right here, which is the nose is staring at you in front of my face. And if you look closely, there's a little scar right there on my nose. And so that little scar on the bridge of my nose happened when I was 7 years old. It's an interesting story, which I won't get into, but I broke my nose when I was seven. From seven until this day, when that breaking my nose incident has sort of set me up to want a medical system that's better than it actually is. So breaking my nose at the age of seven, going into the ER to get X-rays, sort of acknowledge or having the ER doc acknowledge, yep, you broke your nose, and then there's sort of nothing you can do about it. And then knowing on the back end of that something wasn't right, and there was nothing that I could do about it. And so basically, from 7 years old on, I just couldn't breathe through my nose properly. And so what that meant was struggling to breathe, generally, struggling to breathe, especially when I was playing sports. And I loved to play sports growing up, and couldn't breathe at all through my nose when I was sleeping at night. So every single night it was, big puddle of drool on the pillow. Every single morning was waking up with a headache, and really as a young kid and a teenager, not I didn't understand that there was some other reality that should be existing. It didn't seem right, but it was. I was told that it was everything was fine. I guess when I went in to get checked out, everything was fine. And so, long story short, it says that breaking my nose as a 7-year old set a chain of events that sort of made me wonder. Is there something wrong with me? Is there something sort of, is there a existence that's better than the one I was, kind of living through? Now, lo and behold, I developed allergies when I went to college. That sort of added insult to injury. I broke my nose a second time when I was in college, which really took a nose that was barely functioning and pretty well shut it down. Went on and saw a family friend who happened to be a plastic surgeon who happened to try to correct the nose that was now completely mangled on the inside. And while he didn't sort of succeed in getting it remarkable for the first time in a long time, on the back of that surgery at the end of college, I could get a little bit of air through my nose, and so I had a little glimmer of, wow, this is what life can be like if you could breathe through your nose a little bit. It wasn't perfect. Went through allergy shots, went through a variety of things that sort of kept making me wonder what's going on here, and is there a better existence? Had kids. Those kids brought home their germs. Now on top of my blocked up nose, now I started getting sinus infections and headaches and migraines and all those sorts of things. So it's a long story arc of problems, and that started to change when I sort of entered this profession, and it probably caused me to enter the profession, the ENT profession, to figure out sort of the things that are wrong with you are the things that sort of are most interesting. And so when I'm studying as a med student and as a resident, the things that fascinated me were like, oh, this is what happens when somebody breaks their nose. This is what happens when somebody's septum is deviated. This is what happens when the sinuses are blocked off. All those questions, you look for answers. And then what I sort of found out is that, lo and behold, all this trauma, sort of the surgery that sort of kind of helped but didn't really, the allergy shots, the medicines, the rinses, all those sorts of things that weren't really getting me anywhere. In seven, we installed our first CT scanner in office, and because it was sitting there, it was easy access. I hopped in. I was the first guinea pig, and I had the images of my sinuses, the CT scan of my sinuses done. And lo and behold, it was an epiphany. Looking at those images, I could see all of the areas that were troubling me, and I could see the issues in those areas. Many anatomy issues. I had a deviated septum. I had turbinates that were too big. I had sinus openings that were too small. I had chronic inflammation in my sinuses. I had kind of the whole package from an anatomy standpoint. And on top of that, I had allergy issues and inflammation issues that sort of, wreaked havoc with the anatomy and vice versa. So, recognizing for the first time that I had an explanation for all of the garbage that I had been putting up with up until then, led me to want to seek out a pathway, moving forward. And so what I ended up doing was really having those anatomy issues corrected. I had my deviated septum straightened. I had my turbinates reduced. I had my sinus openings open. Those things were, way more impactful than even I thought possible. I think that's the sort of the sad story with most of our patients is you don't know how compromised you are until you get uncompromised. You don't know how impactful these issues are until you're on the other side of them. And so you can think you know, but I didn't know. I can guarantee you I didn't know. And knowing and believing and breathing the way you're supposed to is powerful. It's something that weaves its way throughout your entire life, during the day, everything that you do during the day, especially during the night as well. So everything that you do when you're sleeping at night or trying to sleep at night is impacted. If your nose doesn't work, you can't sleep properly. If your nose does work, you know for the first time in your life what proper sleep is supposed to feel like. And once you have something like that, you kind of finally understand what you've been missing, which is really, really powerful. And for me, what it really did set us up on the path to do is say, hey, I know how powerful the treatments that we offer are. And I know how, really crippling the conditions that we treat are. And you put those two things together and take folks who are compromised, whose lives are compromised, who aren't able to do the things that they're supposed to be able to do, and you provide simple solutions for those underlying issues, and you change people's lives. And you do that one time, and it makes you feel like you've accomplished something, wonderful, and it is. But on the flip side, it sort of says, well, what about all those people that you haven't yet helped? And really, at the end of the day, those are the people that we are, that we're here for. Those are the people that we're trying to get better for every single day with everything that we do. It's trying to, find and seek out the best solutions, the best treatments that exist, and bring them into this practice so that it is simple. If you have issues in these areas, if you have nose issues or sinus issues or throat issues or sleep apnea issues or snoring issues, you don't have to mess around. This is the place. That really was, in my mind, the charge when we started this practice. It's been a journey, but it really was, let's create the place. This is the place. Advent is the place. And that's what we try to do. One patient at a time, and it is really, really impactful. So.